All right, joining us today is Monty Alexander, our longtime friend of so many jazz listeners and jazz enthusiasts in the state of Colorado and, of course, around our country and around the globe. It's a pleasure to see you once again, Monty. It's been a little while since we spoke.
I feel the same way, Carlos. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for this occasion, and I'm delighted to talk with you about whatever. So,
That's right.
ask me about anything. I'm
Well,
ready.
you know, you always have multiple projects going on at the same time. We appreciate your trio, first and foremost, but I love the whole concept of the Harlem-Kingston Express, which you brought to us. It's got to be over 20 years ago. Something you had been experimenting with for quite a while. In terms of your roots, with Jamaica and the music of Bob Marley and that whole thing. So yeah, I don't see how it can get old, man. It's always something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was a kid. First time I touched the piano notes, in my home, and I was immediately like a kid in the candy store. I said, "Wow, what's this?" And I had my ear. A lot of musicians go to school to learn music, but I didn't really go to school. I just love being around the other musicians, the older guys. And little by little, I'm picking up stuff, I'm going to the piano and I'm having fun, just having fun, really. I love all different kinds of music. That's why sometimes when I hear the word jazz and folks have their idea of jazz, me, it's just music. I like all kinds of music as long as can get a feeling. But the thing about holding on to the heritage, being from this island, a nation called Jamaica, I started very, very involved with the local musicians, whether they were in the calypso bands or in the recording studio in my teens. I'd sneak out of school just to go play with music with the other guys at the very dawn of the beginning of Jamaican popular music. Let's call it ska. And then they had rocksteady. I was right there. And that was the beginning. So that's kind of my roots. But guess what? In 1956, 57, my greatest heroes came to Jamaica to perform, and it was Louis Armstrong and Nat King Cole. And that turned my head into this wonderful thing I call America's classical music. It's a classic music that came from Ellington and Armstrong, and anyhow. So as the years go by, I said, man, I can't let go of my Jamaican thing. It's meant to me. And by the way, I come up in the era of Jamaica when the British were still kind of in Jamaica, and the colonial vibrations, the very British influence. And that's just before the independence when Rastafarian and reggae roots came. So I'm a product of that earlier period. So then I kind of went back there and I made these recordings, 2 albums in tribute to the great Bob Marley and other things. But meanwhile, I'm a guy that like to put the swinging on the people, That's what jazz is. If it ain't swinging, somebody once said it ain't mean a thing. And that's Mr. Duke Ellington, he said. Yeah. So I'm living in 1 foot in the yard, 1 foot in the uptown. And somehow when I came up with this idea, one morning I woke up and said, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my friend played drums that owned the reggae rhythm, the beat, the mental reggae beat, and one of the swinging guys with the swinging jazz drumming. And I put it together. And the 2 bass players and the 2 blah blah blah. I just said, wait a minute, this is wonderful. And sure enough, those guys would get together and become friends, guys from 2 different worlds. And this music was bringing, and all these guys over these few years I've been doing it, they became the best of friends, man. So that's what this music did. And anyhow, I kind of took issue. I started blabbing away, but it's such a sensitive subject, the subject about how we as people from another land, another country, you Carlos, you Arturo, we come from, in Jamaica, we come from foreign. Where do you come from? Foreign. And how you come and you bring your
roots
stuff to bear in America, and how do you blend, and America is ideally supposed to be all these different folks coming here, Yeah. And the Jamaica thing, the Mexican thing, the Puerto Rican, the Cuban, the people from wherever in the world, and that's what America is at its best. People.
Well, when you mentioned Louis Armstrong and what things were like in Jamaica in the 50s, What pops into my mind is what Hugh Masekela once said. He said, if it wasn't for Louis Armstrong, we'd all still be wearing powdered wigs, you know.
Well, I tell you, well, okay. First of all, I knew Hugh.
Yeah.
I knew him back in the '60s when I first came to New York. We laughed a little here, you know.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very true statement. And Satchmo, with his jovial personality and his great mastery of the trumpet and his musicality, put it all together, and his joy to share happiness with people. And when I saw that man bring such joy to that theater in Kingston, Jamaica, it was so infectious, you know. And not only Satchmo, but the local musicians playing the calypso songs, the island songs. I heard that, and I heard these musicians bringing a kind of a joyfulness, you know, and that kind of got into me, my spirit. And that's kind of what I do without analyzing it anymore. And I go play the piano. I'm looking for them notes that smile. You know, smiling notes on the piano. Them is my notes. Those are the notes.
Yeah, yeah. You know, so many musicians that I've met over all the years that I've been involved in presenting this music on the radio, and the simplest things always stand out to me in terms of how what's most important in this music that we call jazz. Steve Toure once told me, and when he was out here, to do a concert for KUVO, and he was here for a couple of days, and he came in. He said, "Carlos, I want to do a workshop for kids. I want to do a workshop. Can you get a hold of a school program? I know it's short notice, but can you get a hold of a school program and maybe have the kids here tomorrow?" And I said, "Well, we'll work on it." So we bring the kids in the studio, and Steve. I didn't know what he was going to do, and all he did was teach him the rudiments of the blues. All he did was focus on the blues, and at the end of the whole thing, he said, "Listen, you get the blues down. You get the blues down." He goes, "And then you can do anything you want, because if the music doesn't swing, then it doesn't matter." You know, that was the whole bottom line. So it's very simple. You know, it either grabs you, it swings, and it doesn't all have to swing in the same way, but it's got to swing. You got to be able to feel it, man. The syncopation, the rhythm is all there. So over all these years, I've always gravitated towards gentlemen like yourself, who, when you sit down behind that piano, man, you don't exactly know what you're going to get, but you know that you're going to come out of there happy and feeling good. So. And for that, I have to tip my cap to you, man. You've been doing it a long time.
Thank you, Carlos. Well, it's a healing thing, because people that come to hear a musician, whether it's Steve Toure or Hugh Masekela or Monty Alexander, some of them might come in there having had a difficult day, a bad day. They had a quarrel with their loved one or something. And they come there, "Yeah, I got to see this guy play the piano. I don't feel it." And you start making that music, and there's a sincerity and an honesty, and you communicate to the people, and next thing you know, man, the guy that came that was a little blue, he walk out of there feeling sunshine, feeling happy, you know. And we musicians, it's a kind of responsibility for this glorious opportunity to just sit there and play a musical instrument. Hey, man, we didn't earn it. It's a gift. And you want to make people like what Steve did with those kids. Who knows, some of those young guys and girls may come out of there with a sense of hope, you know, because a lot of people want to play an instrument, play music. And if there wasn't a piano in my home that my mother wanted to play a little song, where would I be? I'd be climbing a coconut tree in Jamaica, something like that, you know. But it's about this wonderful gift that we have been given. And if you keep that in mind and, stay out of trouble and don't get into the substance abuse and all that, you could very well have a glorious life. And hey, man, I'm a young guy. I just turned 81. What can I say? I feel good.
Well,
I love it.
Well, turning 81, and I know you still got some things that you must be working on. Again, congratulations on the project for D-Day, for the 80th birthday. That must have been a wonderful experience, especially going back out to Normandy. And then here we are, 2025, and everybody, again, is always looking forward to the next recording, the next project, and so forth. Anything you can share with us along those lines?
okay, the D-Day thing, it just kind of, I didn't do it. My mother and father produced Monty Alexander, right?
Yes.
It happened that I was born on June the 6th, D-Day, 1940, my actual day of birth. And the irony that, when I was born, somebody must have said to my mother or my father, say, call him Montgomery. And he was one of the generals that did such important stuff with the army, with the British Army. His name was Bernard Law Montgomery, and they named me Montgomery Bernard, and the short for that is Monty. So all my life, I've been reminded, hey, D-Day, General Monty, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like, hey, it just came out of the blue, and the thought came, I want to know that our world, with all of the wonderful things about the world, this world has always been traumatic with wars and people not loving one another. I mean, right now is one of those tender times with turmoil, right? And among the people that can bring a little soothing are us musicians. So anyhow, all that to say that D-Day, I just said, but wait a minute, let me play songs and try to tell a story by which song, this song, that song, that song. And I thought about what was popular at the time. And the song I chose to open the album is I'll Never Smile Again, which is a Sinatra beautiful song in his early days. And I knew Mr. Sinatra. It was all because of Frank, how I got to New York. I don't know if I ever told you that, but Frank Sinatra himself and his colleague Jilly Rizzo saw me playing. I was 18 years old, and they brought me to New York. That's how I came to New York and started playing with these guys, right? And from that point on, I chose other compositions of mine that one of them I called Aggression, people, on the battlefield, and another one where I talk about how important it is for peace on earth. And the recording, I never realized it, but to have friends come to me and say that recording has meaning and value, and it's me, doing some swinging and doing some talk, just kind of say this is a statement to realize that war is never the answer. We're here to inspire peace in the world, and music is probably about the best thing I know, So that's what D-Day was, and it has been in fact, it reopened doors in France for me, where that recording was made. I started going to France in '79, playing in Paris and wherever, and so just now, 2 weeks ago, I'm in these big festivals in playing for like 5,000 people in an amphitheater. And, that recording was just something I just, hey, why not? And it turned out to be something that has a little meaning,
Yeah.
And that's about my 80th record. I made over 80 albums with Concord, with RCA, with Telarc, all that, So I've been at it a while.
Yeah. Well, the very first one I heard was called Alexander the Great. And that might have been in the late 60s.
No. I just thought when you mentioned it, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
I was playing at Gillies. This is just after I met Frank Sinatra, Gilly, and they brought me to come play at this club that was a hot joint back in the early 60s. And where Sinatra, if he came to New York, he'd be there with his friends, drinking his Jack Daniels, and I had a point. Don't lose your point, Monty. Les McCann was playing at Birdland right down the street, and I'd run over on my intermissions while I was playing at Gillies. I'd run to Birdland just to see who was playing there, and I go see it. Man, I saw John Coltrane, I saw Duke Ellington, I saw all these great musicians, and I said, "Wow, look at that!" And Les McCann, the piano player who rocks the joint when he played, he was playing at Birdland on an intermission. Somebody said, "Hey, there's this joint, Gillies, and there's some little guy over there, Monty. He's playing the piano." So Les came with his friend, and he sees me playing. He got all what's the word? Benevolent about. He wanted to see me do well, like when you see a young guy coming along. So he hooked me up with his record label, Pacific Jazz, and that was 1974.
Wow.
Early 60s, and that was my first album. And this thing about, and the same thing happened because of Oscar Peterson, the great pianist. He saw me playing, and he hooked me up with a German record label called MPS, and that's how I made 9 albums there. So it's these guys that I loved and I admired that said, "Hey kid, we're gonna hook you up." And next thing you know, I got me a career. How's that? Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Well, listen, we've covered a lot of ground, and well, listen, Monty and Katarina, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you back here.
Thank you very much, Carlos. You and Arturo, all the best to you, man.
Adios.